Alright, hey guys, hey class. Now we're going to go over Chapter 4, Section 5, and we'll be figuring out how to solve equations with multiple steps, or multi-step equations. So remember, we've learned about adding an equation and thinking about the opposite, how to move things around to figure out the answer, subtracting in the opposite, dividing, multiplying. And it's the same idea that we're going to apply to these multi-step equations. So keep that in the back of your head, remember opposite, and that'll help you figure out the answer. So for example, if I gave you some numbers, 1 times 2, so there's numbers multiplying. So it equals 2n plus 3 equals 13. So 2 times 6 is 12. And 15 is not a match. 2 times 5 is 10. Add 3, 13. So that means n has to be 5, right? But how do I just figure that out without having to guess every time? So there's a process that we can apply. And so remember now that remember that we've already learned this process, that first we have to put things in parentheses on. Let me move this around. So first, in our order of operations, and then we put our parentheses, multiply or divide, add and subtract. So first you look for parentheses, and then multiply or divide, whichever is first. And then after that we'll add and subtract. So for the opposite, so first we'll add and subtract. That's the opposite. Second, you'll multiply or divide. And third, you'll look for anything that's with parentheses, and that'll help you figure out the answer. Alright? So it's the inverse operations. See, right here? So you see the steps are done backwards. Okay? So 2 times a number equals to, first we'll add and subtract. So add meaning the opposite, okay? So we'll subtract 3 from both sides. So 3 minus 3 equals 0, so that cancels that out. And 13 minus 3 equals 10. Alright? So 10 equals 2n. So bring this down to n. Alright? So now go to the next step, multiply or divide. So 2n is multiplying, so we'll divide by 2. So it cancels that. Divided by 2. So n equals, so 10 divided by 2 equals 5. So n equals 5. So this is just showing you how you have to think in this process. I'll give you another example. Okay, so you all are going to figure out and find the answer for 3 times a, so that plus 9 equals 33. Alright, so what do we do? How do we figure this out? 2 times a plus 9 equals 33. You could try and figure it out in your head, or use this process of the inverse operations. So we'll start with subtracting 9, because that's our first step. So minus 9 from both sides. So that's 3a equals 33 minus 9 is 24. So now, what's the opposite of multiplying 3 times a is dividing by 3. So it cancels out the 3 on that side and dividing by 3. So 24 divided by 3 equals what? It's 9. So 8. So a equals 8. 8 times 3 equals 24. 3 times 8 is 24 plus 9 equals 33. So you'll try and figure out the next two. So pause the video and try and figure these out and see if your answers are right. So Okay, x equals 4. So this one is different because it starts with subtracting 5, so we're going to add 5. So 33 add 5 equals negative 33 plus 5 equals negative 28. So divide the 4. And x equals negative 7. So you may remember to keep the negative. Alright, so now it's a two-step process. And don't worry about this, it'll be fine, guys. So we'll go through the process of how to figure this out. So remember again the opposites. And subtracting means adding. So start by adding 12. So you're left with p over s, 5 equals 20 plus 12 equals 32. So now we'll do the inverse of when you have a fraction, it's the same as division. So we'll now need to multiply our 5. So that cancels out the 5. So p equals 160. Alright. 5 times 32 equals 160. Alright. So that means the p is 160. So 160 divided by 5 minus 12 equals 20. It is it's a process that you have to think about in order to get the right answer. So you have to think about the opposites. Remember that. It'll become normal in math when you have to follow the right order in math. Let's do another example. In order to get the right answer, you have to be able to follow the correct order. So be careful with this one because it has some negatives. So 9 minus t equals negative 34. So to get rid of the 9, we'll have to add 9, minus 9. Because it is a positive number, so then it becomes a negative. So negative t equals negative 42. So if there's a negative, t equals a negative 42, that's kind of a difficult thing to look at. So t isn't negative, we'll have to get rid of the negative. So how do we do that? We'll have to divide a negative 1 on both sides. So it's the same as crossing out the negatives, making them positive. So divide by negative 1. So negative 42 divided by negative 1 equals positive 42. So then t equals 42. Okay? So now we're going to apply it to another equation. So 2x plus x minus 27 equals 3. So remember, x is the same for both parts. So 2x, what do? It becomes 3x because we're going to add the other x into that 2x. Because x is going to stay the same. So then the equation then becomes 3x minus 27 equals 3. So remember to do your opposites. So we're going to start by adding 27 to both sides. So we'll get 3x, because that cancels the 27, equals 30. So now the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we'll divide 3 on both sides. 30 divided by 3 equals 10. So then we have x equals 10 as our answer. Alright? So are you guys catching this kind of process? I hope so. I know it's new and maybe a little bit complicated, but over time you guys will get a little bit more comfortable with it, and it's the basic structure for future lessons. So now is a word problem. So you'll see these on your test. A boy wants to go camping with his hiking club. The trip costs $199. Paid a deposit of $55 and will save an additional $18 per week to pay for the trip. The equation 55 plus 18W equals 199 can be used to find out how many weeks Dion will need to save. Which series of steps can be used to solve the equation? So let's write out the equation. 55 plus 18W equals 199. So first, we'll need to look at some of the answers, and I think we can eliminate something first. But first we'll look at doing our opposite, so we'll subtract 55 from both sides. So what are we left with? 18W equals 144. Now, let's look at let's write down our first step. So that was subtract 55, okay. So the second thing we're going to need to do is divide 18, because it's multiplying by W, so we'll need to divide the 18 from both sides. Alright, that's our second step, is dividing. Okay, now which answer matches our steps that we've done? It would be B. That's the right answer. So understand the meaning in the steps is that it's a process, and you have to understand each step of the process in order to figure out the equation. Find the variable using the process and thinking about math and how you'll input the numbers in the opposites. It'll become a more natural process for you if you take the time to figure out how to do it now, because in the future you'll struggle more. And remember to always do your opposites in order to figure out the process. I know it's kind of backwards that we were taught to parentheses, multiply, add, subtract, but now we're doing the opposite. But practicing in class and asking questions, and I hope that you all will not struggle with this and be able to pick it up very quickly. It's really good for you guys to pay attention in class, and I'll see you guys later.